Jacob, tell me what you didn't like about Scott Pilgrim, because you want to be a party pooper.
I don't feel like there's really a point to it. Still kind of slow.
The show
Should
is
have been
slow?
advertised as what it is.
No. Well, yes.
Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
of two minds of it. Two
Well, you
minds.
shouldn't be.
Why?
Like I said, one beat works if you don't know. Every other beat works better if you do.
But well, I don't know. I could just see a couple things. Yes, this is a full. You know what? Just full spoilers. You can spoil the entire thing. It doesn't matter. Uh, because I don't see any other way to talk about it without the spoilers, really. So, and yeah, I think you definitely benefit from seeing the movie first, obviously. But also, the first episode. I don't. I don't know. Because I also don't know how you could market it as a sequel either.
You just
Is
say
my
it's a
thinking.
sequel.
But then people will go through the whole first
Oh,
episode
right, right,
being
right,
like,
right, right, right,
"This
right.
is what is this?" And then if you're
Yeah.
watching the whole, like, would like,
Well,
and some
no,
people won't have
no,
that
no,
patience.
because then you would assume that episode one was like a recap. If you knew it was a sequel and you saw episode one and saw that it was like rehashing, you would think, oh, I guess this is a recap in case someone didn't see the movie. And then the Matthew Patel fight would happen, and you'd be like, wait, what?
I guess maybe. Ooh, look at that guy. That guy has a good strategy. Uh, I guess I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Think about it for 2 seconds, and you'll know. I'm right.
I'm trying to think about it, and I still don't think 2 seconds is enough time to think about it. Especially
Do it faster.
because one positive to how they did market it is they do get to showcase the artwork of Brian Lee O'Malley and probably many other people, uh, and they get to, I mean, not just from the surprise element of the first episode, but also I I still don't know because the fact that Nick watched it thinking it was just going to be the movie again, also I don't know if that's a positive or negative because either
It's
way.
a negative because he didn't see the movie, and it is a sequel, and he has no idea half the jokes or anything. So it's a negative.
But also, I think if I do
He
think the
also
show.
would not have been surprised that Scott lost the fight because he didn't know he was supposed to win.
That's true too. And by the end, by the end, if he watched the whole thing, he might be like, okay, so I know there's a version where he wins, and then he watches the movie. But then is that not good? If you end up
No,
watching the
not at
movie
all.
anyway, because then if you just watch them both again, they sort of feed off each other and into each other in some ways.
No, no, no,
Yes,
no.
because there are jokes I
The
feel
movie
like.
does not benefit. The movie does not benefit from you watching the show. The show benefits from you watching the movie because it is a sequel to the movie.
I do think the show does benefit the movie in some ways. It's still like because you're still getting context of each of the characters in that specific moment in time surrounding. Uh, yeah, it's a different universe, but you're still kind of going back to whatever they probably were doing before they got the call to do the Seven Evil X things. Really,
No, you don't.
I mean, kinda, because they just have to go back to their normal lives after all that went down,
Not even.
except for Gideon and.
None of them. Well, I think technically none of them are going back to their normal lives, as they're all doing something affected by the events of episode two, with Matthew Patel, which doesn't pertain to the movie at all. Nobody's doing something where you could be like, oh, this is definitely what they were doing before the events of the
I
movie.
think of like Lucas Lee.
Lucas Lee is starring in a movie written about the movie.
Oh yeah, that's true too. God dang it, Jacob. Whatever. Whatever. Uh, yeah, I don't know. But I did like I never get that feeling anymore where I'm just like, oh my god, it's so different.
BS. You get that every time you watch anything. You're like, ooh.
No, but come on, we were both watching it. As another like, it couldn't have been. I don't know. I do want them to see maybe try to just go back and do the first movie all over again. I mean that's too much.
The heck?
Just because it would have been cool to see some of that stuff in long form. But if they did just do that, we would have been doing what we did the whole first episode, which is comparing it to the movie. So maybe they could never do that. Because I remember when the first episode ended, I was like, so what? Would you prefer this would just be the books or a sequel? And at that moment, at least, you're like, you just prefer it to be the books.
Yeah.
Uh, did that change at the end, or do you still wish it was
No.
just the books? You still just the books?
No. I said, if I liked Scott Pilgrim more, I'd have liked the show more because it's like there's no real point to it. Like you said, it's just oh well, some people wanted a sequel, and that's the point. It's just oh you get more time with the characters. That's it. So yeah, no, I didn't. I would have liked the books to be done. That'd have been cool.
I do wish they did do some more stuff from the books that maybe didn't get to be done. But they also give each character probably more times than even if they did do that, though. Don't you
No,
think? You don't
no.
think
I
so?
just got done reading all the books. I think uh, the most it does is get some of the characters up to par with what they got in the books, but not most. Roxy gets more stuff in the books than she got in the show.
Okay, fair. What about Kim?
Roxy even like and all she got in the show was that she got to say, "Oh hey Ramona, it sucks that you just left me," and yeah, she got that. She got to do that in the book.
I actually like that fight a lot, the Ramona and Roxy fight in the show.
Yeah, the animation and I mean they're just having fun a lot of the time.
I
Good
was
for
looking at
them. It made it funny. It was a funny show.
behind the scenes thing. They really legit got like anime animators and like French Canadian animators, and obviously some United States, I guess, like probably like Cartoon Network type animators. But they got a pretty wide spectrum of crazy like it's just like, and they had like the Japanese animators talking there in Japanese and everything, being like it's weird trying to do like anime like accents on top of American cartoons, and it was interesting. It's just it was cool. Uh, man, I do kind of miss a little bit of the Edgar Wright flair because I feel like
Yeah.
there's really none of it.
What? Yeah. What? To what extent did he work on it?
He got made. He got going. Period. So like
I don't think he's got any stamp on it at all.
he got the cast back and he got the ball rolling on it to even get started because they asked him if they could do anything with Scott Pilgrim, and he knew Brian Lee O'Malley had interest in doing an anime show before, and they asked. I think at first they even asked if he wanted to do it just the move, just the books again, but he didn't seem interested in doing that. So he came out with this, and you're like, that's interesting. And so they did that. Uh, yeah, there's not a lot. I wish they could have somehow found a way to do more Edgar. Like, but then if you did that, it might be a shorter show because it probably would just do a lot of it faster. I would think. And also, I don't think Edgar Wright's style, at least for this show and what they're going for, would have benefited the fight scenes at all. It would have been more just how they move through
Every
the
other
world.
scene.
Yeah, yeah. But also, I do feel like do you think it captures the language of the books? Like, I don't know. Like, do they sound like the books in a way? Does that make sense?
I don't think so, not particularly.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah.
I would have. Well, now because now I'm just making assumptions of the books based on how it's presented in the show, and I just would be like, oh, this seems like it would. It looks like the covers. I've seen the covers of the books a lot. Uh. So yeah, I don't know. But one thing though, yeah, it is a sequel though, and I do think it does take all the characters more forward, especially Ramona. Scott not so much because I feel like most of his work is done in the first movie, and they do a little more with him in this, but Ramona especially gets the most work done for her, which I think is pretty good, and I think was an interesting angle to go through, and also her literally having to have a discussion with each of the exes is also pretty interesting. And they also still managed to fit some fights in there and cool animation stuff. So at least that's in there too. I could see some people being like, "Oh, great! So we just have to watch 7 conversations play out," and that could be annoying. So I'm glad they do find ways to have fights in there. Uh, but I also think for the characters and for what's going on with Ramona especially, it's better to have her have those conversations. So yeah. Also, I really love what they did with the idea of future Romana and future Scott, and really trying to break down basically it's saying if you guys did just go from the end of the first movie and then never changed again, this is how you both are going to end up. So, basically saying even though maybe they did find each other, but they're not totally emotionally evolved yet, they might have made just one of what should be many more steps to getting to that point, which is interesting. Because I think a lot of people at the end of the first movie were like, it's interesting because at the end of the first movie, there are some people that are being like, well, shouldn't he just end up with knives again? Because
So no. Okay, so I misremembered so much. So the movie was what was going to originally end with him ending up with knives,
interesting.
and then they settled on no, we'll do like the book, and he's with Ramona at the end.
So in the book he does just go with Ramona, huh?
Yes. Also,
I
he and Ramona are so good together in the book, in my opinion. They're great.
really
Like I said before, Ramona's so much more affectionate than I thought because of the movie, and they are only ever like they're pretty sweet. Like the story does a great job of being like, yes, these two should be together.
that is interesting. But what I like about the show is it does take both those characters that I think in the movie all the characters are thinking why are they together, and then the show is really being like why would these two people how they're presented be together at all, and they just sort of try to break it down in some way. Uh, but yeah, uh, it would have been a big mistake. Especially, I think the show expands on that idea even more. It would have been a huge mistake if he did ever end up with knives because it just would not have been right. I don't think.
Yeah.
And I actually like it better that she's like joining the band and she's not even dating young Neil even, which is interesting. If ain't and I hope I doubt she's gonna date Steven
Uh.
Stills.
Yeah. No. Also, okay. So that bit is in the book where you think maybe she's gonna date Steven, but that doesn't happen. Uh. I
It,
misremembered something. I said that that Steven ended up with Julie.
mm,
Steven and Julie had been together before, and they do get together at some point during the books, and then break up again.
ugh.
And everybody jokes like you guys have dated and broke up for 50 times. Then at the very last second, at the end of the last book, Steven gets with a dude, and he's like, "Yeah, I guess I'm gay."
Oh wow, interesting. Interesting. Uh, I like how in the show Steven and Knives, it seems more like a mentory relationship. Like he's just helping her learn music, and I don't, like I said, I don't really think they should ever be together necessarily, or if they did, like in like 5 years in the future, if that ever happened. But yeah, but that is interesting. Uh, what else? Also, I love the part when Scott was like, apparently, a 22-year-old dating a 17-year-old doesn't look uh, good upon in society.
It's considered unacceptable by society or
It's
something like that.
like, yeah, oh my god, that's just funny, just funny. The jokes are so good. I think they're, I think the show, if we would have to watch it again, I don't, but I think it does have some pretty good funny
It's
quotes in
very
there.
funny. It's a fun show to watch. Something I misremembered about the movie and the book was I guess I thought that the story didn't ever outright state to you like, hey, it's messed up that Scott's dating a high schooler, isn't it? But it does. Both in the movie and in the comic book. Like immediately after he takes knives to the band practice, Stacy, his sister, calls him to be like, "What the heck? What's this about?" And whereas I thought that Scott was sort of like oblivious, like harmfully ignorant, he's not. He knows what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "No, I get it." And she's like, "So then, what are you doing it for?" And he's like, "Because it's simple."
That is one thing. Even though it's gross, he does make a point to try to do as little as possible. Like he's basically a glorified babysitter for knives, except they kissed once, I think. Uh, so I mean, I guess I can appreciate that, but also the fact that he is literally just like having her be around, be like, look at how cool I am with my band. That
Also, you know what? I think people probably think of Ramona as in the movie as a what's it called, manic pixie dream girl.
yeah, in a
Uh,
way.
and in the movie, maybe they pass her the off as that a little bit, but she's absolutely not. I mean, I think that the term has almost no meaning for most people who use it,
Yeah.
but based on what its actual meaning is, it's like Ramona's basically the opposite of that in the books, and Knives is that. Like the whole point is they're not supposed to challenge what the guy wants in a woman at all.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like perfectly suited to his desires, and he doesn't have to change because of it. Whereas in the book, that's Knives because she doesn't know better, and so
Mm-hmm.
Scott can be a lame terrible bass player who's doing nothing with his life, and he won't be challenged. Where in Ramona's like, so your apartment sucks. You're terrible to Wallace because you're a mooch and you don't pay the bills, and he's the one with a job and you don't have one. Like you suck. And Scott slowly improves and gets more adult because Ramona challenges what terrible of a state he's in.
And well, that's another thing. Like at the end of the movie, he's when he gets the sword for the power of love at first, it's like, oh no, you like it can only get you so far. It's like,
He
oh,
got that in volume 4 in the books.
oh wow, that's and there's like how
Yeah,
6 or something, 7.
yeah, there's 6.
Okay, uh, and then what happens? He dies and all that. But then when he gains the power of self-respect, it's like, oh,
Which
and he
in the
just go,
book is the power of understanding.
hmm. Well, what do you think is better? And understanding and self-respect. Not in general. I mean,
Uh,
like in the context of the story.
I think self-respect made a lot of sense in the movie. I forget the context of the understanding already. I don't know, so I'll go self-respect
But also,
probably.
it's true though. If he did have more self-respect, he wouldn't be mooching off Wallace, and he would, at like, if he. I saw something on Twitter about people talking about why do they always say that Sex Bomb sucks, and
Yeah,
and
I think well,
it's a
in the
projection of
book,
Scott.
I think in the book they're supposed to just be understood as canonically they suck, but obviously in the movie they didn't make them suck. They just didn't.
Well,
So who's gonna understand that watching the movie when it's like you actively say this band sucks, but I like the music they're doing that you're doing right now.
well, I saw someone on Twitter talking about well, Scott uh, he always says, "Oh, we suck," and he's like projecting that onto the band. And Steven Stills is so insecure that he's just like, "Wait, do we suck?" And so they like implying that they don't understand whether or not they suck because one of the key members of their group thinks they suck, or at least keeps saying they suck because he's not secure enough in himself to know whether or not they are good or not.
Scott apparently barely knows how to play bass because he wasn't the bass player; he was the drummer until Envy switched things around because she replaced him with some other drummer, and
That
so
is
he was like, "What am I
funny.
supposed to do?" And she's like, "You'll play bass," and so he had to start learning to play bass.
And what? Did you know Kim before? Did he date Kim before or after NG? Before?
Before Kim,
Oh.
he dated Kim in high school, and then he moved to Toronto, and that's why they had to stop dating.
Oh
Uh,
wait, was she?
yeah,
Is Kim
and then
American?
eventually she moved to Toronto. Uh, Years later.
Is Kim American?
No,
Oh, where's she?
there's
Oh,
some other
just
Canadian
Canada.
city.
Canada more Canada. Vancouver or something probably. I
I don't know.
don't know.
Someplace more rural, I think.
Montreal.
Yes, maybe.
I know Canada. Am I gonna win this?
Also, it's revealed in Volume 6 that, like, how Scott. Well, there's a whole bunch of stuff about Scott's memory being manipulated and bad. Uh, but it's revealed that, like, his memory of how he and Kim got together and split up was significantly different from what actually happened. Like, the whole thing where he fought some dude to save Kim. Apparently, Kim's like, no, that dude was nice. He was just some, like, small, innocent Asian dude. I was dating him, and you beat him up, and then I stopped dating him and started dating you. We both sucked. That we were the bad people in that story. And he's like, what?
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, and then also, Scott didn't even tell Kim that he was moving. He told his other friend, Lisa, and Lisa told Kim. And Kim was like, so Lisa tells me you're leaving. And he's like, oh, yeah.
Oh man. Uh, man. Well, another thing I really liked about uh, like you get to see all the exes' point of views from when Ramona left them. So it's like the one that I thought was kind of more like one of the more messed up ones was when Lucas like when she just literally just stopped seeing Lucas Lee and starts dating Todd, and they're literally at the same school, and he
Yeah.
just has to watch that happen. It's like, come on, man, and nothing. She just changes her hair and just goes off and dates somebody else. Uh, I don't know. I just think it's interesting how much they put on Ramona in the show, and also, oh god dang it, what happens with man, I don't know. Scott. I don't know. I just lost my train of thought because I died.
Scott's also, like, in the movie, they go with this idea of, like, oh, Scott is growing increasingly tired of having to fight the exes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this line that people always get, like, they get, like, really, flared up by where they're in the bar right before Roxy attacks, and Scott's like, "Is there anybody in this bar who you haven't had sex with?" And that sort of tone and attitude they go for in the movie, there's zero of it in all of the books. Scott never expresses any disdain for the number of people, the quality of the people, or the having to fight the people that Ramona dated. He never does.
No, but so that is the thing though. I do think if there's anything, he should have some qualms about the fact that, or maybe he shouldn't. Maybe he's only fighting them because he feels like he has to fight them when he could just not fight them. I don't know. But I think if he should have any qualms, it should be the fact that, like, why do I have to fight these people just to date you? Why can't you just have a conversation with them so they could not be mad anymore? I think that's a valid concern. But also, I
Yeah,
do.
he never presses Ramona to talk about anything. Like she always refuses to talk about things, and he never presses at all. And the only time that he like really addresses it, he just addresses it to say, "Hey, you don't talk about anything. I just want you to know that's fine," and then just goes on.
Man. But also in that moment in the bar when he is being a jerk, it doesn't he have like a jacket that says like 4.5? Like he's in threat of becoming a new evil.
I don't know if it's right. I think it's after that scene. He's wearing a shirt that's a Fantastic Four shirt, but it has one half written by the Four.
I
And
love
that is and it's something he is wearing in Volume 5.
that's such a good visual. Uh, but uh, I do.
He, you know, how he's unwilling to fight Roxy is kind of a quick joke in the movie. Whereas he made a bigger deal in Volume 4 about how he didn't want to hit a girl, and everybody's like getting mad at him for it. And ultimately, that he's like, all right, F it. You know, if I want to prove my love to Ramona, I really have to take this Evil X thing more seriously. And so he's like, all right, I'll do it. And that's when he gets the power of love, and he cuts Roxy in half and kills her.
oh my god. Man. I don't remember if Roxy ended up with anybody, but I think her and Kim just become best friends or something in the show. I think. Oh, fudge. Well, that's another thing. I think the movie, I guess, would if you, someone had complaints about it, probably cuts out some of the or just straight up the text in some of the stuff in the book. Sometimes for narrative purposes, and also sometimes just I don't know, just it just happens that way. Like there's a like some there are a lot of people that hate on Scott for different reasons in the movie. There are also a lot of people that hate on Ramona for different reasons, like you said with the Man Pixie Dream Girl
Yeah,
stuff.
a lot of a lot of the characters are kind of just crappy if you look at them without the flavor of the story.
Yeah, and I
In the
think
books,
that's
they're pretty insistent on reminding you. Well, I guess these people all kind of suck. Like the books say it kind of a lot.
but
Yeah, or but they sucked, but they don't want to suck, and they'll try to suck less.
exactly, and there's obviously plenty to appreciate about that. But also when we were kids, I remember when you, me, and Noah were watching it, and we were all just like, I would not want to be friends with any of these people. This is fun. So it's like it wasn't lost on us. But I do think over time it might be lost on a lot of people, especially since it wasn't that popular when it did come out, and now over the years it's just been discovered by some people. I think smart people get it, but I could also see people looking at Scott and thinking the whole time he's just a hero, when really he's like, he's messed up in a lot of ways. And there's some song I heard that was saying like Ramona ruined today's women, which I don't know. I liked what the
My
title of
God,
that song. I don't know if it's
what the heck does that even mean?
I don't know. I don't know. But the fact that it's a title of a song, a random song in the world, I do think it's interesting. Uh, but I'm not saying that's. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think that's a true statement at all. But how maybe some men are viewing Ramona in the movie, that's why I think it's so much more important for the show to spend more time on Ramona, because it really does flesh out more of her character stuff that maybe some people who might both like
Does
or
it?
hate Ramona for right now.
Does it?
Was what?
Does it?
I think so. Yeah, I do think because in the movie Ramona does kind of hide behind Scott's fights. I don't think maybe at some point she's like, "Look, you guys don't need to fight," but never is she really like, "Don't
She
fight."
fights Roxy.
Well, she fights Roxy, but that's only because Scott won't hit a girl. I don't know.
Also, like, there's no reason in the movie for her to, or in the book, I guess, for her to be like, you don't have to fight. They're attacking them. The X's are
That is
attacking
true.
them,
That is true.
and it's not like it's never as if they're not. Scott's not willing to talk to somebody. Maybe Ramona isn't, but they're not trying to talk to Ramona either. They're not. The
That
only
is
one
true too.
the
That
only
is
one in the book
interesting.
the only one in the book who actually tries to talk to Ramona is Roxy, and yeah, they just talk a bit, and yeah,
That is well, dang. I think that's probably more of a plus because I think that probably says something about toxic masculinity, like where the anger is pointed to, or maybe not. I don't know
talking about.
because like why are they all fighting Scott?
Oh, okay, like they're like, oh, we're gonna fight you instead of Ramona's the one that wronged us. We're not gonna deal with that. We're just gonna attack the guy.
Yeah,
Well,
and also just deal with like
that's
oh
also literally what Knives does, attacking Ramona after finding out that Scott cheated on her.
yeah,
Which,
that's true
like,
too.
in the book, Knives finds that out pretty quick, like either in volume 2 or 3. As soon as she sees Ramona, like with Scott, she's like, wait a minute, that's the woman we saw in the library, because they saw her in the library. That's where Scott first
Oh.
sees her in real life. He's like, I remember that. Oh, so he cheated on me because he saw her for the first time before breaking up with me. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah, and then but then she immediately blames Ramona for it. She's like, oh no, Scott would never do that. She must have made him a bad person.
Dang, that is interesting. I kind of like both the angles. Uh, I do like that. That is interesting. There is a lot of hate on Ramona, but uh, but for different reasons, and it is so weird that the evil exes are fighting Scott instead of trying to talk to Ramona. Like,
And they keep saying they're gonna get Ramonia back with Gideon, and obviously the show they sort of essentially just make a joke out of that with Matthew Patel being like, wait a minute, like we don't get Ramona if we win. What was the whole point?
yeah, we
And
just get
Gideon's
it for
Gideon's
you.
like, no, I get Ramona if you win. That's how it works. But yeah, in the books they're always just saying like, oh, Gideon's gonna have her. Gideon's trying to like kidnap her. By the way, like
And
also, oh,
brainwash
this is
her.
a major thing difference between the movie and the book, and something that I had misremembered because of the movie forever. Ramona never goes back to Gideon.
Wow.
Yeah, she disappears, and Scott goes through an indefinite amount of time without her, and he's like, oh, you know what? All right, it's fine. He fights his nega Scott self. All this stuff happens, and then he's like, all right, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna beat the last evil X. I'm gonna get Rona back because I've decided, like, I'm gonna fight for her, whatever it takes. He shows up to the Chaos Theater. He starts fighting Gideon. He's like, where is she? And Gideon's like, what are you talking about? And Scott's like, where's Ramona? And Gideon's like, you lost Ramona? Like, you went through, you beat 6 of the 7 evil X's, and then you pushed her away. Dude, like, you ruined this. You ruined this whole thing. You got to the last step, and she's not even with you anymore. And then, he kills Scott. Ramona shows up. They both fight Gideon. And they're like, Ramona, where were you all this time? She's like, oh, I was just spending the year with my dad. I've just been kind of a lazy, sitting around the house on the computer all day. That's it.
Wait, so
and which is basically what Scott had been doing. I was confused about that. I don't know if I misread that. It didn't feel like a whole year had passed, but they purposefully kind of made it hard to tell how much time was passing. And what she did was basically the same thing Scott did when she left, just sitting around doing nothing at all.
That is interesting. I think that's probably better that she.
And Gideon reveals that like he's got every woman he's dated, I guess, cryogenically frozen.
Oh my god!
And
that's
he's like,
more evil.
And there's an empty space for Ramona, and that's like his whole thing. Ramona. So there is the whole thing where he's in Ramona's head, like the subspace highway stuff. He's in there.
Mm-hmm.
She like sort of never got over him because he always ignored her, and I guess that's like this whole thing about like it was like the first time someone acted like they weren't chasing her, they didn't care about her, and how it kind of gave her a sort of complex about it.
Interesting.
And he's like, well, yeah, I do that, but then also I didn't expect you to leave. And so then he has the same thing sort of going on, and that's why he tries to freeze every woman he dates, I guess. Also, he's dating Envy at that point, kind of.
Oh, wow. That is interesting. Because it would make more sense, especially after seeing the show, that Ramona wouldn't just go back. I mean, in the movie, they have a good reason. Like, he literally has like a chip in her head.
He has that he has that too in there, but she did not go back to him.
Interesting. But it makes more sense for Ramona's character to just keep moving on and go away.
Yeah, it does.
I kind of like that more. And I also like the idea of him fighting Gideon and Gideon being like, you got here for what? Because like now that twists it on Gideon.
Yeah.
Being
yeah.
Like,
also I think as Scott explains, like, yeah, she left me. Gideon's like, well, I mean, I guess you're gonna have to join the league.
That is funny. That would have been hilarious. I still don't know if you could do it in the movie because the movie does have less time to try to communicate a bunch of that. But that is such a good twist. I like it. Then literally does put Scott in a position of where the evil X's were, and then the idea of Gideon having to try to recruit him too. That's funny. That is hilarious. Maybe could just do the books again. Maybe I wouldn't mind doing it.
The books are like substantially different from the movie, man. And I had forgotten how many ways.
But now could you even do it now that the show is basically more of a sequel to the movie? Would you even say that?
See, that's why the show is a sequel to the movie. I wish it had just been the books. That would have been cool. Not that the show's bad. If you wanted a sequel to the movie, I think then, look, you got it. You got what you wanted. You got more time with the characters. You got more jokes that are in a similar style of it. It's funny. It's fun to watch. And the animation is great.
Yeah. At first I was scared the animation was going to be a little too simple. But you really do get to see, they do spend some money. Like, even sometimes when it seems like you spend a little too much money for doing something very not expensive.
Yeah.
But still, you see it on the screen, and I appreciate that. I love Wallace is still probably an MVP and probably still my favorite young Neil climbed up a little more. Uh, but Wallace, I love that Wallace is just like, he just, he just, I don't even know what Wallace is. He just gets into situations and he just is chill. When he had to fight, when, I love that he had like a bunch of stunt doubles do his fight for him. That was awesome. Uh, I love that in the future he just, I thought it was weird. In the
Old young
future,
Neil.
old young Neil, oh my god, funny. Uh, but I feel like was old young Neil voiced by the same guy also?
I don't know.
Probably. But Wallace wasn't voiced by somebody different. Ramona wasn't voiced by somebody different. But Scott was. Is that because Michael Cera doesn't have an old sounding voice?
I don't know. Maybe it's just that they wanted to have that guy do it.
Will Forte. Yeah, and plus Will Forte is funny. And he was pretty funny as
You
Future
know that
Scott.
song they sing is like a reference to something.
Which one? The I Feel
The
Fine one? I
the
Feel Fine!
future Scott and the Kadianagi twins, their song something
Oh.
something hurricane.
Oh, yeah!
That song is like it's an anime opening of some anime.
Oh. Do you know which one?
No,
Oh.
I forgot already.
Man, it's funny. Uh, it's in that behind the scenes little video I saw for the show. Brian Lee O'Malley was like, "So yeah, I was just really into indie music and anime." And then he wrote Scott Pilgrim. And I think is he Canadian or did he just make him
I
Canadian?
think so.
It's just interesting. Like it is a culture clash. Like the fact that you're seeing, these skinny white Canadian people, especially when you look at Michael Cera, who is I think actually Canadian, uh, and also incorporating the anime stuff. It's like, what is this? This is funny. It's funny. Uh, Anything else you want to say about Scott Pilgrim? Because it's almost about an hour we've talked about it. I'll have to edit it later, but yeah. Any final thoughts?
But I think at some point in volume 5, Wallace gets a blurry picture of Gideon for Scott, and he's like, "Here's what Gideon looks like," and Scott's like, "Okay," and then from then on, there's like 8 times where someone who vaguely looks like Gideon shows up, and Scott's like, "Gideon!" and he punches him in the face, and it's always someone different, including in volume 6, Scott's brother Lawrence.
He has a brother?
He has a brother Lawrence who you do not see until he shows up, and Scott's like, "Gideon!" and punches him.
Dude.
And Scott's parents are like, "That's your brother."
It'd be hilarious if they did a third season, or I guess second season of this, but third sequel, and it was just called, like, Lawrence Pilgrim something something.
I think his last name isn't Pilgrim, and
What?
I have no idea why.
How?
I have no idea. It was Lawrence something, and I was like, "Well, how is it Lawrence something? How is it not Lawrence Pilgrim?"
Dang. Maybe it's a stepbrother. I doubt they'll have another sequel to this, or if they do, it'll probably be in 10 years, like, they did. But I would love it. I mean, I don't know how hard it was for them to get all this lined up. Because on one hand, there's a bunch of famous people who are still kind of popping. On the other hand, it's animation. You can record in a wildly out of order and still be pretty good. So maybe they could do another one. I'm glad it exists, and I'm glad it was different, because, I mean, I think if they did the books, it probably would have been different enough, but people would not necessarily have gotten that right away. But, I mean, I like that it was something I didn't expect also, because and it's all from the same voices anyway. It's Brian Lee O'Malley still. So it's also, even if it's not technically a sequel to the books, it is more of the books in a sense, still, in a way. So, that's cool too. And I like the cameos with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost in there. That was nice. That's like the most Edgar Wrighty thing they did.
That's the only Edgar Wright thing in it.
Which is fun. It's still fun though. I still like it. I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what Edgar Wright could have done with this. It seemed more like a Brian Lee O'Malley led thing. He was like the co-showrunner. Edgar Wright, I think, literally just got the ball rolling, which is still good. Still good. Because I much rather it exist than not exist. So yeah. And it's still crazy. It's just crazy to me that 10 years later, this just came out and just almost out of nowhere in a way. And it's just weird.
Also, Ramona finding out that Scott had cheated on her with knives was a much bigger deal in the book.
I think that should most definitely should have been a bigger deal when she found out ever, because like not just he cheated on me, which I mean big deal, but with a 17-year-old, or at least 17 at the time of the cheating, pretty messed up. But yeah, and yeah, I think all the characters I think just got better, like just did more and got a little bit better in the show, especially Knives. Like when I think of Knives, she had a better journey. Uh, and I think a journey that gives her a little bit more dignity, which I think was nice. Young Neil, I think, is probably the most of the same throughout the whole thing. Uh, Steven Stills, pretty much the same ish. Well, a little different. Kim, a little different. Everybody's a little bit different, I think. So I appreciate that. All right, that's it. That's all I'm going to say about that.